Welcome back to another episode of the Zaneta Show. I'm here with Alice, and she is a career astrologer. And our conversation today is going to be centered around how astrology can guide you from burnout to breakthrough. We'll explore how your chart reveals your true gifts, timing for major transitions, and how entrepreneurs can use astrology to break cycles of fear and step into success that is truly aligned for who you are. So welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you for coming. Tell me a little bit more about how you got into this space.
Yes. So I went through a career transition in my late 20s, early 30s, also known as a Saturn return. We all experience it. It's very much so a time of existentialism, of like rerouting of your career path if you were not on the path that you're meant to be on. Because Saturn is the planet of responsibility, of discipline, of maturity. And so there is that moment in your late 20s, early 30s where everything kind of gets jumbled up. And for me, I had a really great career in consumer marketing in Asia, and everything like looked great on paper. But I just kind of felt like things like weren't quite right. Like already, let's say like in my mid to like kind of like from 25 to like 27, I was like, this isn't right. And it was like very much so the precursor to a Saturn return. And I moved back to the United States. I lived at home, started a business like right around the start of my Saturn return. And it is a profound time of change. And for me, yoga, astrology, all these different spiritual and wellness modalities really helped me to understand one, like my values, two, what I wanted, which then gave me three, understanding of what I wanted to do in this lifetime.
Amazing. And so you mentioned that you felt a shift. And as I listen to women, and especially, me being in that, a couple of years before 40, I think that I've also personally felt a shift as well. So tell me a little bit more about what that felt like, because I don't think that the general masses can define this as what could be their Saturn return, and this is where they can find a lot of inspiration.
It's a very frustrating time if you thought you're going to be on one path and then you suddenly realize that you're meant to go on another path. And this is primarily because our identities are so closely tied to our work, for better or for worse. And so when you start to feel that internal shift of maybe this job isn't meant for me, maybe this industry isn't meant for me, it can cause a lot of a psychological breakdown, that we just don't realize, that nobody really tells you or talks about, which is why, let's say, like leaving a 9 to 5, starting entrepreneurship, or just doing something very differently from your existing path can be so just like a very challenging time.
Mm. And so, what would be your advice for women, specifically women, because my audience is tailored towards women? What would be your advice if you're feeling this particular shift? And how can the work that you do help usher women into really rediscovering what's truly aligned for them?
Yeah, so your Saturn return happens a couple different times. So late 20s, early 30s, mid to late 50s, and mid to late 80s. And during this time, a lot of things will be presented to you. You'll be invited to really rise to the occasion. And the biggest thing is to really cultivate your own spiritual practice. And that can mean a lot of different things. It could mean connecting with your body, connecting with nature, like just being more present in your body, in your
Mm-hmm.
everyday life. I think that's really, really important. And we just started a new cycle last year in Western and Eastern astrology. And specifically in Eastern astrology, we've started this new cycle called Period 9 for the next 20 years. That very much so mirrors the Western cycle that we started, which is Pluto in Aquarius. And Period 9 talks about the rise of the middle aged woman. So I would say, I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but we're on the up and up. No matter how you slice and dice it, you're pretty much like most of the population will move through their their middle aged years. through this 20-year cycle. So I think it's an incredible, exciting time. And we should really just lean
Hey,
into
look, I'm here
to
for
the
it.
to the confusion, to the restructuring of things, because many women are asking themselves, if they're in a 9 to 5, like, how can I lead? How do I operate? How do I balance work and life in a different way? And those who've stepped out of the corporate setting, they're like, okay, what type of impact do I want to make in the business that I have? So this is happening not just in one arena, but really all areas of like professional development and growth.
You said it's called the age of the middle-aged woman.
Yeah.
I am loving that because I think that we are subconsciously aware that this age is upon us. Even from a content perspective, you're a fellow marketer, so the voices of women in this age group have been amplified. Their perspectives are a bit louder and more prevalent across the social space. So I definitely agree with that, and I'm right here for the age of the middle-aged woman. And so, how can women take advantage of this truly by getting in alignment? And corporate is such a drain sometimes. There's so many politics and microaggressions and stressors that really just cloud your judgment and quiet your intuition. And so, this awakening, I feel, is very critical for your whole self. And so, what would you see are common blocks to really embracing your Saturn return?
Well, I would say that so your Saturn return only affects you like in your late 20s, mid to late 50s, and mid to late 80s. There are other milestones, like you just finished a nodal return. There's also things called reverse nodal return as well. And all of these big astrological milestones that really are markers of big career changes. You just really have to understand like the season that you're in. A lot of times I think that we just have one mode. It's just like go, 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 go. But there are many seasons to life. I just started reading this book. I believe it's called The Wintering or Wintering. And it talks about seasons of our lives where we go inward. We're not very social. Like might have gone through a very challenging time. It's very, very introspective. And I think that as women and women of color, we feel a pressure to show up in a certain way. And we don't feel like we have the opportunity to rest. And this book and our conversation today gives women, especially women of color, the opportunity to just rest and pause, because we can't accelerate all the time. And my own intuition has told me like, hey, you should really slow down right now, take moments to rest, just because it's going to get busy really soon. And then I'm like, well, I got to go continue to do things. I got to put things in motion, and kind of just like burning like the candle from like both ends, only to realize like, yes, my intuition is always correct. And it was quite busy later on, and I really could have used that rest.
Are you in my head? Because I think so. I have just been nodding in agreement with everything that you're saying, because one of the things that I've done since leaving a corporate space is share something close to me. It's an ebook called Winning in Your Resting Season. And thank you so much. I spent 14 months in this same sort of like, what is this? What is happening? I have spent so much time in my career, and as you said, burning at both ends, just doing all the things, the hustle, right? And I wear the shirt on purpose, just moving so much that when I was forced, because it really wasn't a choice, and sometimes it's not a choice when you are placed in the space to rest, that I was confused, like, okay, so what does this mean? Searching for meaning. And that entire process was mirrored by exactly what you said. Okay, cool. Let me just go inside. Let me work on myself. Let me listen to divine inspiration so that I can figure out what I really want to do. I also enjoy human design paired with astrology because I'm a generator. And so sometimes I do enjoy, yes, yes, but sometimes you're generating the wrong energy, and if it doesn't feel right,
Yeah.
my confirmation is sacral, and my not self mode is frustration. And so I
Yeah.
was largely frustrated in corporate, but still pressing through because that's what I was supposed to do. So now
Yeah.
when I launch my show and having conversations with women like you, and these topics are just so spot on, it's energizing. It is generating the right energy for me. I really, really enjoy what you just said because it has been my personal experience as well.
Thank you. Yeah. And, we just finished a cycle from 2023 until like the end of 2025 that spoke a lot about finding your voice, really advocating for yourself, asserting yourself, and really leaving behind codependency
Mhm.
and the need for external validation, which I know shows up a lot in your chart. Like you always bring people together, you like to keep things very harmonious, but at whose expense? Your expense. And really, the last few years, you've just really learned that the right relationships will put you miles ahead
Yep.
rather than keeping the ones in the same ways or just keeping relationships that just no longer serve you and knowing that you can do things on your own. So, this is called a nodal return. And we all experience what I just said to a certain degree, but you specifically experienced it much more acutely. And I find that with a North Node in Aries and a South Node in Libra, there was a lot of moments of like liberation from like a romantic relationship, a professional relationship. Like I just actually did a video on the Diddy trial and Cassie, and there was a lot of that dynamic after I looked at her chart and I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And I think that this year we're going to see a lot more women, not just like public facing celebrity women, because, most people
Yeah.
are not celebrities, but really you're going to start to hear in your circles, in your group of friends, like women saying like, I was actually in an abusive relationship, or that relationship didn't serve me, and I've left this person, or I'm healing from this, or I was in a toxic like work relationship. There's a lot of these things that are going to be emerging, which requires a lot of rest and healing
Mhm.
for many, many women who have felt like they had a lot of their lives taken from them just unknowingly because they just weren't in their power.
Yep. Yep. And I did watch her video on that, and it made me also think about not just reclaiming your voice, but even more specifically with Cassie's experience with domestic violence. I've never said this publicly, but I grew up seeing domestic violence in my own home. And I'm just now getting to a space where I can recognize it to really heal it. You have to recognize it first in order to heal it. And so I
Yes.
feel very empowered by Cassie's strength. And I did see your video, and I hope that more women are able to just really be honest about their experiences so they can really move forward and be free from those types of situations.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that when we share our vulnerabilities, it gives us more power and it gives those around us power too. I was talking to my sister and she was like, this must be so stressful for Cassie because she's pregnant. She's like, this is kind of traumatic. And I'm like, it's part traumatic, but also extremely liberating
Mm-hmm.
because as she's in gestation, like she can just get rid of this so it doesn't carry forward her child.
I'm just really proud of Cassie. So I know that it takes a lot of courage to be able to do that. And I definitely hope that more women are able to also liberate themselves from those experiences. And so one of the things that I wanted to also touch on is you mentioned going inside and listening to yourself, listening to your body. Can we delve a bit deeper into that to elaborate on what that process looks like?
Oh my gosh, it's a lot. And I was talking with some friends in New York about it. And I've been doing this work for about 6 years. So it's like the work that, you know, people might touch here and there in therapy or in yoga or whatever it may be. Like I try to do it every single day or very, very often. And just like a couple weeks ago, I was like, I think I need to be even more aware of how I'm feeling in my body. And there's so many layers to it because I think that if you grew up in a household that didn't really support your emotions or the processing of your emotions, like you almost are disassociated with your body. Most of us are. And I think that one of the important things we're learning this year and next year is to come back home to ourselves, into our bodies. So the last few years, it was like more of a cerebral recognition of like, this is who I am. This is how I want to be in relation with others. But now it's like, okay, I understand myself more, but what does that actually mean? Like connecting with the body and really viewing health through a holistic lens. And when you start to kind of go inward and listen to yourself, it can be very, very uncomfortable. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people don't feel comfortable being alone. They keep themselves busy.
Mm-hmm.
They drink or they just exercise a lot. That's also like a healthy way of
Yep.
distracting
Yes.
yourself. But what it really means is just getting to a place of awareness where you can pause and check in with yourself and say, how am I feeling right now?
Yep.
How am I feeling? Is my breath stuck,
Mm-hmm.
like in the chest, in the throat? Can I drop my breathing down to the belly and allow my body to expand like a balloon? And I think for especially women and women of color, for so long, we've just been told to ignore how, like, being uncomfortable. So that disassociation is a dissociation with your intuition as well, because intuition communicates through bodily sensations and a feeling in the body. So what you have to understand is that if you sit with your emotions, like let's say you're going to work every day and you're just like, I dread going to, like, that feeling releases all these stress
Mm-hmm.
hormones out. Your cortisol levels are so high. And one, you either leave that job, or two, you have to reframe
Mm-hmm.
you in that role. So it's really about connecting with your body, checking in with yourself. Are you thirsty? Are you hungry? I was talking to a client yesterday, one of my regulars, and I was like, you just are burnt out. Like there's some astrological things happening, but I was like, you just had a hard conversation earlier today with someone. You're taking a lot in from that person. I was like, did you do anything to cleanse yourself? No. I was like, did you do something to really ground yourself? Also, it doesn't sound like you've eaten. No. Water. No. Like rest. No. So all of those things, we have to treat ourselves like Tamagotchis.
Mm-hmm. I remember those. I had one.
Yes.
Take care of it. Take care of yourself. I've become so much better at that exact process. Just listening to yourself, I am less anxious. I will also say that I have a lot of ashwagandha, a lot of lion's mane. I have to have it in my coffee. And that frazzle that you feel, kind of like a fuse that's busted and you see a wire and it's just frayed. I no longer feel that way because that process of just taking care of yourself. No one else is going to take care of you. Especially as women, we wear so many hats. We're moms, wives, sisters, besties. We are boss women. But at the end of the day, if you're not making those deposits back into yourself, you will find yourself on the path to burnout pretty quickly. And so I really appreciate what you
Yes.
said, but then also not going too far in one direction to where you are finding another way to disassociate from your body, because that's not helpful either. The balance
Yes.
is really, really important.
Yes. And I think that for many who are listening to our conversation, if they relate to feeling anxious or kind of always being the ones who have it all together, very achievement focused, like type A, and like wanting things just so, like a woman with a plan, like when the plan deviates, it's terrible. Like this is the year where plans are deviating. We're almost halfway through the year, and there's just a lot of things that are out of our control. And
Mhm.
so time and time again, I like to remind clients, and I think that's why astrology is so helpful. I'm like, this is the year, and also next year, where you're not going to have control. And that's okay, because your plans aren't going to kind of unravel in the way that they're supposed to, but there is a better plan in store.
Absolutely. I agree with that. What is one action that women can take today? This show is about women feeling empowered to stop waiting and start winning. So, what can we or you advise women to do today to make that process a reality?
Yeah. So when we're trying to connect with ourselves and just like really cultivate our intuition, the first step I like people to take is to look at their moon sign.
Mm.
The moon tells you about your emotional needs, how you process your emotions, your inner child. It's a part of you that not a lot of people have access to.
Mm.
So when we start to understand our moon signs, then we understand, like, okay, how do emotions move through us? And that's very, very important because sometimes, if we don't know how to regulate ourselves, emotions can really pull you in so many directions, ones that belong to you and ones that don't belong to others. As an example, if you have a water moon, so that's Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, you feel a lot. You're an empath. And so you need to surround yourself with the right people. You need to have the right practices so that you can clear out energy and become just like a clearer vessel for yourself.
Mm.
If you have an earth moon, which is like Virgo, Capricorn, Taurus, that means you're probably a little bit distanced from your emotions, like naturally. And you would rather focus on the tangible of like, how do we fix this? We're feeling sad. What do we do?
Yep.
Taurus moon, buy something. Capricorn moon works. A Virgo moon cleans and organizes, makes a
Mm.
plan of action. So when we understand our moon sign, it makes us feel a lot better that we're not weird. Sometimes I think that we think that we're weird, that we don't do things the right way, or we're behind, or we're different. But astrology really tells us that we're all the same. It all exists. And it's okay.
Wonderful. As a air moon, I feel like my emotions are everywhere. Identifying your moon sign and having a bit more clarity around that is one step that you mentioned. We also talked about listening to your intuition and being able to rest. And I define this period as kind of like if you're playing basketball, you're Steph Curry, you have been balling all night, but there's still a little bit of the game left, and the coach pulls you out. The coach pulls you out to sit on the bench because we need you in the fourth quarter, right? And so this season of resting or pivot, however people want to identify with that, doesn't mean that there's not success on the other side. It means that you have to conserve your energy for what's next. And so I think there's always a lot of questions around, well, what's next? Oh my God, what's happening? And it's like, okay, just relax because you've never seen this before. So what you may find on the other side of those questions may be either innately rooted in you anyway, and it just wants to sprout, and or it's completely different than what you have been doing before.
Absolutely. And I think as someone who is always checking things off and like have a plan, what I realize is like every time I rest, an idea comes to me. The idea drops down. Like I think the book is called A Creative Act, and it talks about a concept that like has been spoken about many, many times, but I think that the stories and the way that it's told is like really, really great, is that when we get ideas, they not just come to one person, they come to many people, and whoever is the most well resourced, ready to receive, ready to make change, ready to kind of pivot as needed, will be able to capture that abundance, that blessing, because we're all connected through this energetic like net and blanket. And when someone's like, like in a town, like, I think we really need a community center, or like we need a gym or a pizza place, like, a smaller the population, less people, but like when we talk about, let's say, a tech platform, all of a sudden you're just like, there was this, then there was that, like all of these things came up. Well, a lot of times it's like that happened all at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
and when you are really listening, when you're paying attention, that is when the idea comes through. That's when the next step comes through.
Yep.
And things are always changing. Like I have a client and he started a business that was very out there, like tech, with like, AI, and doing it for a couple years. I kind of felt it like kind of a little bit clunky. And there came a time when a new idea came through and you're in that liminal space and it's so uncomfortable because you're like, but this one just started to go and I think it's going to go somewhere, but I have another calling that feels like a better fit.
Yep.
and that discernment comes from your intuition, comes from rest, comes from a place where you are operating like through such clarity and such conviction and confidence. You can
Yes.
be uncertain, but you can be confident in, like, you know what? I think this is the next step. I'm unsure, but it feels more right than other things in the past.
Mm. One of the tools that I use to, again, support that confidence, I have orange nails. I have orange nails right now to support the chakra energy source in myself that needs the most healing. There are so many ways that we can tap into really cultivating that same confidence and conviction. And so with, ah, I love that.
I made this years ago when I moved to California, and I set the intention that I would be more creative because like red and orange and yellow. So this is the solar plexus, this is the sacral and the root. It's about stability, creativity, joy, pleasure, and confidence. So yeah, same color as your nails probably.
Yeah, it is. And that is exactly why I have a yellow chair. I have yellow space in my home just to, again, make sure that that energy is also present. I think when it comes to even chakra alignment, everybody wants to be at the top chakra. Well, all of them are a part of the system. We have to make sure that they are all, flowing as well. And so I really love that you have that. What is one of your most inspiring success stories from your life?
Oh, well, sometimes these things they take a while, things don't happen overnight. So I've been doing readings for about like 3, 4 years now. I've had my business for 6, and I'm sometimes it's really fast. Like I had a client see me a couple times over the course of like 6 months. He was struggling before we had first spoken, selling his business, and through our sessions together, he became like more confident, and I gave him some timing of like, this is when you're going to be able to kind of let go, sell this business, or just like kind of leave it behind. And I remember it was like the second session that he like booked with me, it was like months later, he was like, it worked. I did it. I sold the business, and I was just so, so, so happy for him. Another client example, she's been 20, 30 years in finance. They won't let her go. She keeps on trying to go. They keep on giving her more money. She's like, well, I don't know what else to do. We had a session last summer, and we kind of unraveled a lot of things, went all the way back to her childhood. And she said that she always wanted to start a stationery shop. Couple months ago, she messaged me and she's like, I did it. I started my journal product. Like I'm selling
Nice.
journals now. So some of these things like take a while. Other times like it's more just like in the moment. I am holding space and they're able to process and they're crying and they're feeling seen. Like we don't know how one conversation like kind of tumbles, like it's the butterfly effect, right? Tumbles forward in time and causes that domino effect. So I love every single conversation that I have. And I always tell clients, I'm like, please come back. Tell me like what you've done. And there's so many other stories, like starting a podcast, writing a book, like starting a business. There's like so many different things. And I'm happy for each and every one of my clients.
I love that. It seems like you are really a partner to your clients, a trusted resource, as you mentioned, holding space. And that's really important for someone going through this type of transition because it's very foundation shattering when you are not sure what's happening and everything that you thought you knew is no longer. So thank you for that because it's not too many places that an individual can go and to have a judgment free zone to think some of these things through. And then you provide tools. And so I think that that's golden, that you have allowed yourself to be open to this work and share it with others.
I think the funny thing is that when I started my business, I think at this point it's like over 6 years now. I like lose track, but I remember I had explored a lot of different things like yoga, sound healing, meditation, coaching. I've done like marketing consulting, business consulting. Like I had done all of these different things, and I was very frustrated because I was like, why can't I just focus on one thing? I'm just being drawn to so many different things. So energy reading, oracle, tarot, like there's like, I literally have so many different tools. And at the time it was confusing. It was frustrating. But now years later, looking back, like I have all of these tools that I can use for my clients, whether it's like, it's usually not during the first session, because they
Mhm.
really just need like the astrology information. But if somebody wants to work with me long term, I add in other things. Obviously, there's always astrological insights, but I feel really grateful that I explored all these things that seemed like they didn't make sense before, but now it's like the best thing.
Nice. Wonderful. So what's next for you? You have obviously gone through this process. So where do you see yourself taking your business, and what would you like to continue to offer to your clients and the world through what you're learning?
So I just launched a membership a couple months ago, and I do like a monthly forecast and workshops there. So that's a really nice way to stay connected and to build community. So that's what I'm working on building right now, because even with all the AI technology that we have, I think the one thing that it can't do is the accountability portion,
Mhm.
or else we would have done a lot of other things. We would have been eating healthier, like
Right.
exercising, we wouldn't have all these like diseases, like we really need accountability. We need community. So I'm excited to really grow that area of my business. I've been doing a lot of astrology for team building for my corporate clients. And that's really fun, where I go in, I tell them about their communication style and leadership styles and how they work, how they manage. And that's always something really fun, to bring astrology into the corporate environment and be like, look, it's like really fun. It tells you all these things. And they're just like, how did you know this about me? So yeah, I those are the things that I'm like growing in these coming months. And of course, I'm also working on a version 2 of my website. So right now, yoursaturn.com gives a free career astrology report, and I'm working on noodling on what does the next version look like for people who are transitioning in their careers and want to really see all the different possibilities available to them.
Wonderful. I like that. And I will certainly be following along and look forward to supporting the next version of your business. And so you just mentioned your website, but let's mention it again. Where can we find your work and learn more about your services?
So everyone should get their free career astrology report from yoursaturn.com. I'm on Instagram, TikTok at Woo Woo Company, WOOWOO Company. And yeah, I'm easy to find on the internet.
All right, Alice, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for chatting with me. And if there's any one last thing you would say about your glance at my chart, what would you tell me before we go?
Oh, let's see. I would say that this year is going to be a much better year.
I like it. I
It's
like
going to
it.
be a lot better.
That is what I
A
want
lot.
to hear, okay? Because last year was
I know.
a kind of a nightmare. But anyway, thank you, Alice. This is wonderful. This has been another episode of the Zaneta Show. If you loved it, stay a while, like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.